Right, go.
So, hi everyone. The reason I'm applying for president is mainly because I've been on the JCR for 2 years now, so I do have a lot of experience and I've seen several different presidents, so I know how the role can be improved, how to be a good president, some things that maybe you shouldn't do, and I'd really like to have the opportunity to do it. And as accommodation and services officer for the last 2 years, I've done quite a few things to do with JCR, so running the ballot and improving it by making it live on a Google Doc, the room rents which we're currently looking at now, which should be completely redone by the next year's ballot. So they'll be a lot fairer, there'll still be, total amount of rent will still be the same, but the rooms will be a lot fairer, so everyone's personal complaints will be looked at directly. The laundry prices are increased way too much. We've looked at it, Tit Hall, we use the same company, and theirs are cheaper, so we're getting that looked into. And the bursar's doing that for us, making sure that if we can get a lower price, we will. Formal tickets, this is running on as well, to get them online, to make it a lot easier for you guys, so instead of having to queue up in the hall, you can do it in your own room. We're going to probably try and start that with Christmas formal, it might not be done yet, but we will get that done soon. And then just as services officer, buying all DVDs, cues, Q-tips, pads, everything you guys have asked, bought it. So I know I can get stuff done, and I know JCR president is a bigger role, but I do have the time, I think, as a third year NATSCI, to completely devote to being president, and I'm doing a full term because I will come back for a fourth year. I'm also very organised. I have a lot of experience with being on other committees and being a project leader for student community action, so I do know how to manage other people and manage my own time. My main policies, the first bit is just essentially communication. So many people have come up to me and said that they don't actually know what the JCR has done for them at all last year or even any year they've been here, and that is just, that shouldn't happen. So the simple things we can do is just, for example, using the Facebook page, just telling people week on week, we've talked about this is what we like to do, this is what we've done for you. That's the direct involvement with the JCR. But indirectly, we can also do a lot more welfare events. So stuff like the quiz, which loads of people turned up to, which is great. And that's another step that we can interact with the college. So doing more of that, maybe a pub crawl, maybe sports matches between years so we can get to know more people. Just really simple things like that. But essentially, I think for the first few weeks in office, it is going to be about tying everything together. So the things that are still going on now, so tutor welfare, KUSU, developing a plan as to how we're going to make the most of the fact we have re-affiliated, and stuff like rents, making sure that goes through. All this, we need to create a plan, and that will be the first things to do before we develop any new ideas. Things like the bar, which we're talking about, making that more of a hub for student action. That, I think, should come later. I think we first need to focus on KUSU, tutor welfare training, things like that.
Will McDermott's talking next. You have 3 minutes, Will. I will knock after 2.
Okay. Hi, I'm Will. I'm a second year engineer, as most of you will know. I'm running for president because I sat on the JCR for the past year, not so long as Caroline, obviously. I've seen what we do, and I've seen that we've done some good things, and like Caroline, I've seen that we could do more, and you guys could know about that. The experience I have, I've been freshers rep for the last year. Not only have I sat on the JCR committee and contributed to discussion there, but as freshers rep, we very much ran it as a committee-based thing. I've chaired meetings, I've tried to get the most out of people, and I think I'd use that in my role as JCR president if I got there. Freshers week was a stressful time, trying to coordinate a lot of things at once, and I feel like I could take that experience and put it into the role of JCR president. My main policies are, first of all, foremost is communication and accountability, similar to Caroline. I want the JCR to very much communicate what it does to everyone, for individual members to write reports on what they've been doing termly to each other, members of the JCR, so that they can be accountable to each other, so they can feel like they're playing an active role, and then for the JCR itself to submit a report to all of you, to the rest of the JCR, so that not only can you hold us accountable and it can make us work harder in our roles, but also it means that people can get involved, give suggestions on what we could be doing for the JCR and for the undergraduate population as a whole. My second policy which is something that we've been talking about a lot in the JCR meeting, something I feel very strongly about, is welfare training for tutors. And it's not, for me, it's not teaching them, it's not about teaching tutors to be a counsellor for a student, but giving them the tools to put them in the right direction, so that students, if they need help, are pointed in the right direction of help. Another thing is I want the JCR to be more inclusive for the rest of the student body. We have things like the catering forum. I'd like more like that. I want ends committees, bar committees, like the bar could be improved. I feel like we're not going to be able to do that without the input of the JCR body as a whole, and I think we need more committees and more communication with the rest of college to improve our life here. And finally, with KUSU, I voted yes to re-affiliate, and the reason I want to do that is I want us to be part of KUSU and to talk to them, communicate with them, make sure that they are accountable for what they do, and each of their individual members, paid members, are doing as much as they can for us. And I want myself and any other interested members of the JCR to make a really active role in finding out what they are doing for us. So if we do come to vote to re-affiliate, we have all the information we need.
Right, can we get both of you back up here and we'll ask some questions. Anyone got any questions for both of the people here? Matt?
Looking around, I noticed that there are no freshers here. Can you give me an idea of how you're going to encourage people to get involved? Because obviously they don't think it's cool enough, but we can do that.
Will, you go first this time.
Okay. Well, we did work to encourage people to come down to tea shops and meetings in Freshers Week. I think the main thing for me that would show the freshers that they need to come to things like this is for us to communicate better what we do and show them that what we do actually affects how their life is in college. So if they know that a bad officer or a bad policy is going to affect them in a positive or negative way, then they're going to want to come down, they're going to want to listen, they're going to want to attend open meetings so they can have their voice heard. And I think possibly once the cool factor comes off and we do communicate more what we're doing, I think that'll encourage freshers to take more of an active role in what happens on the JCR and these kind of meetings.
I'm not sure it's a fact of it not being cool enough. I think a lot of it is because they didn't understand what the JCR was. Like, at first we were emails saying, come to Hustings, talking about KUSU. They might have no idea what Hustings is. And that might be a lot of the reason why they're not coming. They don't understand it. Why would they waste time on it? So if we're a lot clearer right from the start, if we all go see the freshers as JCR officers, to show them we're just normal people, this is what we do, and really highlight maybe over the first few weeks, so this will be next year, just specifically, this is what I'd like to do for you, these are the specific things each officer will do, just do it incrementally, so they do understand all of the things as a whole, bit by bit, and they should become more interested gradually.
Alright, just for future actually, we'll do like 30-second limits on each question, so I'll knock on this. Louis?
I've looked at both the manifestos and from what you've both just said now, it seems like you're both talking about very, very similar things. And I guess what I would like to know, I guess everyone knows here, the short answer is why should we vote for you over the other person if you're both talking about exactly the same things, which you are, because you're both talking about welfare training and the bar, and maybe yourself more accountability, all these things are great, but if you're both the same person, then it's a really good point in us voting for one of you or the other person.
Yes,
I think there are 3 points for me. I think I've got probably more experience than Will at managing other people. So from the committees I've been from school, from being managing directors of a company, from being CEO of a work experience group, that sort of thing. I've got a lot of experience in managing other people. And also I'm very organised, which I think I'm maybe more organised than Will. So to organise JCR and its officers better than Will would. And then lastly, the time. I think I have a lot more time because specifically how my course is structured with practicals, I will be able to go 10 hours a week.
Alright. Will?
many of those things now. I think actually what I think is very important, which I think we've talked about accountability, but I'm very, very, very strong about our members of the JCR being held accountable, and I wanted to play an active role in part of that. And I can be organised. I've managed people. I did Freshers Week. I ran the committee meetings. Like, I may seem a bit of a ditzy person on the front, but like, I get things done. And I'm very committed to making sure that everyone here gets the best deal, and I feel like I can do that as well, if not better than Caroline.
Question? Yeah, Nikki.
In an ideal world, if I gave you £2,767, like QC affiliation fee, what would you do with it?
Well, first I'd spend it on equipment, because we need equipment, that's obvious. I'd spend more on societies. I think I've mentioned a few times. Frankly, our societies aren't funded heavily at all. It'd be nice for people to, when they want to start off a society, they don't have to just sort of like do it off their own back. They can actually put some money into it and make it possibly more than just something amongst the college, like maybe uni-wide. That'd be great. I think we could put more into welfare, like Caroline said, or in fact more into events. They don't have to be welfare events, just events to get everyone involved as a college. I think it's nice.
Caroline?
I think the first thing I'd do is ask the college what they want it to be spent on, and then look at that, and then I'll go back to the committee. I think what the committee would probably decide on is things that are most important to us, which is welfare and access, which we can use money very beneficially for those 2 points. Welfare, I think, going back to my point of trying to get everyone more involved with JCR, maybe spending it on welfare to get all the college to know what JCR is, get involved with it through that, and then access would be a separate point. But if we can do more work on access with more money, then I think we should.
Sweet. I've got a question. Both of you mentioned things that we've sort of half implemented already, like the welfare training, the rent survey thing, getting equipment, but all these things we've started, and we've got, even the bar as well, like all these things that I've spoke to college about, or people in the committee about, and there's only a certain time scale that you can work to, and it's quite hard getting people to do things or getting people to implement things, and like people just don't work to the time scale. What would you do differently to persuade people to work better or faster or get things in quicker?
I think that's managerial skills. So if you can tell people, we want 2 weeks to do this, we need you to decide in those 2 weeks what we would like to present college with, and after that you just do it bit by bit, giving time scales, and give a really positive result at the end. We're getting a comfier bar or things like that. Just really an incentive is, you are clearly performing your role well. If you tell all the officers that each week the college will know what they're doing, and if the college can see, well, they've talked about it this week, but they haven't actually done it, why haven't they done it? It's a month later. And I think that's quite a big incentive. If everyone knows that you're not doing your role, you'll probably want to do it a bit better.
Okay.
Well, personally, I think it's quite easy to sit on the JCR and not do much. I get the feeling that Richard was pounded on people pretty damn well, and they didn't necessarily do what he wanted. I think actually you get the people who want to get involved. So if you want to get stuff done, you want to get the bar sorted, like you get other people involved, you make a committee. Like, I think there's only so much management that we can do, but actually you take anyone who's keen to improve college, you let them improve college. I think that's just as important as hounding people and blaming them for not getting stuff done.
Okay. Questions? Yeah, Heather.
Just like, because you're going to be JCR president of the entire JCR, how will you get the freshers to know more about your campaign? I mean, seeing as no one's turned up, what are you going to do to make them understand who you are and why they should vote for either of you? In the next week? Is it a week? Vote for?
2 weeks.
48 hours.
So
Right.
Well, you're first this time.
Well, I don't know, that's sort of like publicising, isn't it? But I don't usually like the use of Facebook pages for campaigns, but I guess that's an option. I mean, I know the freshers, obviously, but I don't feel like that should be.
would you like to say anything else?
I don't feel like communicating with the freshers that what my campaign is as important as communicating what the JCR is as well. I'll run a Facebook event, probably.
Go on.
So I don't know as many freshers as Will does. I think those who will want to look at us both they will read our manifestos, and they will look at the emails, and I don't think there's much more. I personally don't want to bombard each freshman door to door and go, I'm Caroline and this is what I want to do for you. I think if they care and they want to choose a president, they will read our manifestos and they will look at what's happening here.
Just an addendum. It's just that, because what Dan said, just your manifestos are very similar. It's just how they would choose between them. As Louis said, how will you make sure that the freshers know you more than I know the 30s of them?
Is that vegan?
Carlin, go.
Do you mean in an office?
Just
now?
Yeah, and an office.
Well, I've got a swap tonight. So no, literally, I don't want to actually go door to door with pressure. I don't think they'll appreciate that. But if I do see any pressure around, I guess a lot of it, because we are so similar, is how our personality, I guess, and how you could tell, I guess, probably what kind of JCR we would run. And so I guess if we get to know more people, they might get a sense of how we would run differently to each other.
Yeah, I'm friendly. I think, yeah, I'm friendly. I talk to all the freshers. I don't just get with them.
I can see that in lights.
Was that a presidential statement?
Yes. I feel like the better parts of my personality come out at times, so I don't feel the need to throw myself as with Caroline in their faces and tell them why I'd be amazing at it, because I want them to make a decision for themselves.
Anyone that's not answered ask the question?
You both mentioned tutor training as being something you want to institute. I think most people can agree in principle that that's a good thing, but I want to ask you how you actually see about that being put into practice, and how you think we might get around some of the pitfalls such as funding and persuading the college to get on board, briefly.
So we've already talked this about in the current JCR, and I think we probably should be able to do a lot more before we have to hand over. But specifically, so your point about if we do have college assistants, then I do have very good. I know Keela very, very well now. I wouldn't call us best friends. I would, and I will keep battering him if he won't budge. He can be battered eventually. So things with funding, I think if it's an issue such as tutor welfare training, then I think that is something we could bring forward to the Burr. So it would be difficult, but if we have enough backing from all the students and other tutors, I think that it would be easier to get access to it. And as to what we'd actually do, so we've already talked about this, but I think we kind of got confused between two parts as to how to give more tutor welfare via more tutor meetings, etc., and actually how to get the tutors themselves better at giving out welfare. And that specifically, so we've already talked about getting the current welfare officers to write a list of things that they could direct them to for specific issues. And I'm not sure that is enough, but that is a starting point. I think it's just going to have to be a trial and error sort of thing, where we give tutors bit by bit more, as many things as we can, and eventually we see, is everyone getting treated like they would like to be treated, so that every student feels they can go up to their tutor for whatever problem, and they know they will be treated fairly and positively.
Go ahead.
Well, in terms of welfare training, I think it's got to come from two directions: how to treat a student and make them feel comfortable talking to you, but also where to point them. And I think actually where to point them, we can do a lot about that with no money, just by being active. So talking to KUSU, seeing if we're affiliated, talking to KUSU, talking to college, talking to the welfare reps, making sure that we've got all the information and that all the tutors know that and know where to point specific cases, types of people, what they can get out of the resources that are available. And secondly, just training on how to be an approachable person, like that kind of training. Yeah, you've got to go through college, but I think if you push a point and you push a point hard enough and you get the backing of the college, I think we would, then I don't foresee that being an issue.
Yeah, nice.
I know you've both worked with different members of staff on the college, you have different roles, and building up good relationships. Would you be happy potentially breaking down those relationships if there was a real issue that students wanted you to get involved in, even if they are your best friends?
Yeah.
Well, you go first.
Yes, I'm very clear that I think that the JCR needs to be a very strong voice in college, and I think through the last year we have been at times, sending slightly moody emails about the fact that people are paying too much for essentially very noisy rooms, stuff like that. I think I'd be more than happy to go put my neck on the line on college council with specific members of college and possibly breaking down relationships in an attempt to get the best from the JCR for the JCR.
I agree with Will. I think if you apply to be president, you are saying that you will do everything you can for what the students want you to do. And if that means breaking down relationships, then you should. But I think it is a balance. If you may need that fellow or member of staff later on down the line, then I think you have to do it tactically. You have to push a point, but not so far as to they will never, consider anything you propose again. But if something needs to be pushed and the whole of college wants it to be pushed, or the majority wants it to be pushed, then you absolutely have to.
Lizzie?
Kind of more of a general question, but what do you think is the biggest problem that an everyday Selwyn student will face, and what will you do to fix it?
I think the biggest problem is prices around college. So prices of rents, prices in hall, prices of laundry. So rents and laundry, we're already working on laundry. We will try and get it to the same price as tip hall. And if it doesn't, we will try to maybe subsidise it. We'll think of a plan, but it is too high at the minute. Rents, we can't get them lower. We are smack bang in the middle of other Cambridge colleges. So it's a bit difficult to negotiate them being lower, but they will be fairer. So if people do not want to spend a lot of their room, they know that they can choose a room, and they know that room will be fair for the size, for the view, etc. And at the minute, that is all we can do. And then hall, we'll keep asking about hall. So the kitchen fixtures, things like that, we are having problems with them. But as long as we make sure, the bursar puts us in on all the meetings before making any big decisions, then we will try to keep everything to an absolute minimum.
Admittedly, I would probably put, in terms of everyday problems, prices are a big issue, but I think actually another thing possibly would be less everyday, is just feeling represented. I think, in the sense that things like the catering forum, stuff like that are really, really important, so that what does affect your everyday life, like what your bar's like and what the food's like in hall. Like, you go into hall and you sort of eat the food and you kind of accept it. People very rarely put in complaints because they often feel like that would make a difference. I think people need to know that if they think something or if they want something, they can make a difference and they can change their college life. And I think that attitude needs to change. I think that's just as important in everyday life.
Anyone got any more questions? Caitlin?
Yeah, sorry to go back to the welfare thing because I know you both answered quite well on that, but it sounds a little bit vague. What are the actual things you do? Would you compile a report that you'd submit to all of the tutors, like a guide about how to improve their the way they handle welfare, or would you have a training day? What would you do to rather than just something concrete?
Well, that totally depends on the stage that you get. So if you get the support of college and you get a little bit of funding, ideally you have a training day. And if it can't come to that, then I don't think it ever wouldn't, because I think that college is something that college would support if you put enough fight into it. You make sure that they're well informed. You give them not a guidance sheet, but they've got a list of places that they can send students, that resources that they can use to make sure that they can make sure that their students are having the best best possible deal out of college and that they're feeling cared for. I think that's like a list or a guide that we can publish using the resources that we have, because we have a lot of welfare resources ourselves, and I think that's probably the most important thing straight away.
I think the reasons our answers sound vague is because the kind of problems that the tutors are going to be faced with are going to be so broad. So someone who has a mental health issue is going to be completely different to someone who's having problems back at home, and that's why the help we're going to give is going to have to be really broad. So the things like a guide that would try to encompass as much as we can, but it would have to be general, and there's nothing we can really do about that unless we really make it a really big issue. We devote a lot of time, maybe a few officers, maybe a subcommittee, to really make it a thing so that we can tackle as many issues that we know that people would come to their tutors for. The training day, that all tutors should have undergone training, but they don't have to. So if we just target that, then at least we know they'll have some basis. And then I'm not sure how we'd run another training day. I think that's, again, it'll be something that we have to actually look into, get a lot more into it, get college involved, and really get a lot of the JCR involved into it as well.
So would either of you form like a subcommittee to look at improving tutor welfare?
Depends whether it would come under the remit of whether the welfare officers and say the JCR president and maybe the vice president would feel comfortable liaising with the college and taking that workload. I think it's not something that needs a subcommittee in the sense that it's not something that needs an opinion, because it's welfare help, it's stuff that we are untrained on ourselves, so we need help. But so I don't think it would be subcommittee. I think it would just need a lot of time and effort.
I think if we decide on a plan as to how we're going about getting more tutor welfare training, and if that means a lot of effort and time will be put into it, then that's why we'd get a subcommittee. If enough people feel it's important and feel they do want to spend time to put together a guide, then I don't think there's really any other way we could do it. We'd have to get more people involved.
We've got any more questions?
I don't think this has been asked. Just on QC, obviously we voted and it's gone one way, but it was very close, which I think sends the message that we're not very happy with. Even someone like me who voted for would like to see change. I know some people think that's quite a naive hope, but if it is possible, how will you go to them and say, look, you've got another chance, potentially a last chance, what are you going to do better for it? And how will you get them to improve?
So I think the first thing we need to do is make sure that we go to as many CUSU councils as possible. So that means making sure we have a voice in them and making sure that if we have any problems, we bring them up at CUSU council. I don't think that's the best way to change it though. So if we get the relevant JCR officers in touch with their SAB officers as soon as possible and make sure they get a really positive relationship going, and so they can interact directly and get specifically the SAB officers to change what they're doing and understand what we want to change, so that the whole of CUSU knows that Selwyn isn't happy and this is what Selwyn wants and this is how we want you to do it. And if we keep that going week on week, then we should eventually see changes, and if we don't, then we can always vote to disability next year.
I think actually it comes from, there's the issue with the SAB officers, but they also employ 11 other paid people and we don't know what they do. I think actually part of the problem is we need to know that we need to get them to be more transparent about what they do. So if that means when you go to CUSU Council, but meeting with them and asking for that information, and asking for reports on more detailed information on what they do throughout the year, but also we've got to get other colleges involved. Like we can't go and be like, Selwyn isn't happy. Oh, they don't care. We're one of 31 colleges. I mean, it matters to them, but it doesn't matter an awful lot. We need to communicate with other unhappy JCRs and, as a whole, try and instigate some form of direct communication where we can make CUSU a bit more accountable for what they do and accountable for each of their officers and what the time they're putting into it, because it needs to be clear that they're putting in good time and that our money is spent well, and it needs to be clear that there will be a consequence if that weren't to happen. I felt like
Yeah, Lou. Yeah, Joe, you go
Have
first.
either of you ever been to a Coots Up meeting?
No.
Yeah, Lou.
I sort of feel like we've been a bit guilty maybe in the past couple of years, but feeling like our budget is our budget and we don't have any other way of making any more money. And it seemed like a bit of an odd idea to have. Presumably more money means we can do more things, as I think he's already pointed out. So I don't know, what's your ideas about actually increasing the budget? Because presumably you both feel that the amount of money we get from college, the more money we'll have, we can put on more things for our students. So what are you going to put in place? What are you going to try and encourage to make sure that we make more money, not just from Box, but from other sort of events and things like that, so that actually our budget increases so that we can put on more things, we can do more things, we can buy better things?
I think it's a bit tricky trying to make more money from students who are actually trying to also make them spend less money, if you see what I mean. So I think rather than trying to get more money, I think we first need to decide how we would spend more, because at the minute we are going up to our budget, but we're not spending over our budget significantly. So if we do come up with plans that will need more money, then I think we can start thinking about ways to get more budget. ENTS has historically been a way to make profit. And I think that's probably the fairest way, because it is clear what we're giving back, giving the BOP, that sort of thing. But I'd feel a bit uneasy taking even more money from students when we're trying to say that we're trying to save money as well.
Yeah, I have quite an equal feeling in that. I tried to run Freshers Week. Joe tried to run Freshers Week without a profit. We didn't feel like we wanted to take any more money from them than we were giving back. But at the same time, I feel like, as Caroline says, if we feel like there's money to spend, that there's things we need, we do, I guess, and equipment, that it'd be worth running more rents, maybe fundraising. I feel like he shouldn't. I feel like he should do the best for the students. So if he feels that the committee is wrong, he should very much. I don't know. I don't think you should, because I think the committee is large enough to represent opinion. But at the same time, if you really feel strongly about something, maybe not get a referendum, but get solid evidence that the college or the populace at JCR feels differently. I mean, by all means, but it should never be a personal decision. It should be based on what people think or the JCR think, one of the two.
I think it depends on what scale. I mean, if everyone's disagreeing because you want a meeting on Friday and everyone wants to meet on Thursday, then just have the meeting on Thursday. But if it is a really important thing that is going to include everyone, then of course you're going to have to listen to it. There is, the way we run it is if you have a vote, and if whoever has the majority, that's what goes through. That's that's how we pass policies, etc. So, to be honest, I don't think there's ever been a situation where that's come up. And I find it difficult to imagine one where it would. If you've given the JCR all the facts about what, if it's something I'm trying to bring up and I'm trying to explain it, if I've explained it thoroughly enough, and that everyone does understand what I'm trying to say, and it's clear that they're disagreeing, then that's how it's going to be, how it goes.
I think in general for the big things as well, we usually vote on it as a committee, so you sort of go, spread it anyway.
I'm asking that question because from my understanding of it, I felt like the committee last year there was some call for you maybe not to send an email out to the Dr. Keeler about the noise encrypts with some of the machinery going on. I think it's very good that you took a stand and actually said, no, I'm going to go on, speak on behalf of the freshers here and actually take that over the people in charge. I thought that was a situation where that happened. So.
Cheers, man. Don't have any other questions? I think we're good. Well, everyone give them a round of applause to our candidates. Voting will open tonight at midnight and run for 48 hours. And before I finish, it's probably just worth, two things that I should probably mention is